If you're studying for the IELTS listening test, then here are a few tips that will certainly help you out. I'm assuming that all of you know about the structure of the IELTS listening test. This caters for both academic and general test takers, and it's divided into 4 sections, each of which has 10 questions, which means you have 40 questions in total. I'm not going to dive into detail about what each of these sections include, but today my main focus is going to be how you can find answers and prepare better for the IELTS listening test. But if you want to find out more about the structure of the IELTS listening test, I'll pin that video somewhere here, so make sure to go and check it out. When you're trying to do the IELTS listening test, there are a few things that you can do to make this process easier while doing the test. Aside from this, we're also going to talk about a few things that you can do to prepare better. But right now, I'm going to tell you what you can do while you are doing the test. The first and most important thing that you can do is identify the fixed and flexible keywords. Now, what you have to understand about the listening test is that there are very few fixed keywords. Unlike the reading test, which is abundant with fixed keywords, the listening test takes a totally different approach. Just to jog your memory on what fixed keywords are, these are proper nouns, alright? That means the names of people, places, animals. Alright, so if you have a name, if your dog is called Andy, then the word Andy is a proper noun. If you are called Jim, well, then Jim is a proper noun. So any name, the name of a country, the name of a day, the name of a month, all of these fall under the category of proper noun. So if you have a proper noun, chances are that is a fixed keyword, and you can listen for exactly that keyword in the recording. They will not change a fixed keyword. Alright, they will not change a proper noun. Then you also have dates, alright, 23rd, 24th. Then you also have numbers, 4,000, 5,000, alright, and you have scientific terms. If you have scientific words that you don't really understand, usually scientific terms are given as fixed keywords, which means the exact word that appears in the question will be given in the recording as well. So the easiest thing for you to do would be to read through the questions first and underline the fixed keywords. Now, as I told you earlier, fixed keywords are not as abundant in the listening test as it is in the reading test. So you need to be very careful. If you can't find any fixed keywords, don't panic. That is totally normal. Then you need to look at flexible keywords. These are the words that make or break the question. That these are words where they have to give a word in the recording or else the question won't make sense. But they will not give these words exactly as it is. They will have synonyms. Alright? They will have synonyms. For example, if you get a sentence completion type question where it says, one of the main things I learned from the university was, and a blank. Now in that question, the word university will be a flexible keyword. They might say university itself, alright, chances are they might say that, or they might say campus. So a different word might come, but without the word university, that question, that recording will not make sense. So you need to identify what are the flexible keywords. Then the main thing, the most important thing, one of the greatest things, they might give a synonym, but still without that phrase, without those words, the question would not make sense. Therefore, when you're listening to the recording, you need to first highlight these flexible keywords. If you have fixed keywords, that's great. Your job is that much more easier. But if you don't, you will have to settle for flexible keywords. And for this, you need to know your synonyms. For example, you need to know that the main thing can be rewritten as the most important thing, all right, or the greatest thing. We don't know how they'll give it, but they might change it and you need to be able to understand it. All right, so understanding your synonyms is very important. So that is the first tip. You identify your fixed and flexible keywords. The second tip is to read the questions carefully before they play the recording. Now you already know that regardless of whether you're doing the paper-based test or the computer-based test, they usually give you a significant amount of time to read the question beforehand. And once the question is done, or once the recording for those few questions are over, they give you time to recheck your answers. When you get time to read the question, don't do anything else but read the question. All right, so focus 100% and read the questions word for word, because it's important that you identify the keywords and you also understand the question. You can easily understand by reading the question whether your answer is going to be a name, whether it's going to be a verb, whether it's going to be an adjective. You can identify these things by reading the question beforehand and getting a good idea about what the question means. When you get the time to recheck your answers, don't bother rechecking anything, because chances are once you have heard the recording, you're not going to remember anything to go back and mark something. If you do, go ahead and do it, but chances are you won't. Utilize this time as well to read the next set of questions, because if you've lost 2 or 3 marks in the first 5 questions, you can still regain all the marks, 5 out of 5, for the next 5 questions that you listen to. So make sure you read through it properly and understand it well before you start listening to the recording. Right? That is something that you certainly have to do, because if you're not focused and if you're not 100% there and reading the question, then chances are when the recording is playing, it's very hard for you to understand it, because you're reading, writing and listening at the same time. If you're doing the paper-based test, at least you can underline and eliminate the answers that you think are not correct. With the computer-based test, you can't even do that. So you need to pay attention 100%. So you need to be focused and read the questions before the recording starts playing. All right? So that is tip number 2. Read the questions well before you listen to the recording. Tip number 3 is that you can guess your answers using grammatical structures. For example, imagine there was a question like this, a sentence completion type question. The university was hiring a highly qualified university blank. When you listen to the recording, you hear a vague answer, you hear graduates. So you're not sure whether it's graduates or graduate. All right, so you're wondering, okay, do I put graduate here, graduates here? Because if you put the wrong answer, if you put graduates instead of graduate, that is wrong. All right, that extra S will cost you your mark. So what do? You look at the articles. All right, so it says hiring a university graduate. Why do we put graduate? Because it says means only one person. That's the singular form. Therefore, we have to put graduate. But if there was no if the article was missing, the university was hiring highly qualified university. There is no article therefore we have to put graduates, the plural form of the word. Right? So you can make an educated guess if you know the correct grammar. This is only if you get stuck. Don't try to predict or guess answers based on grammar, because there are instances where you might be right, but of course there's a bigger chance that you might be wrong. So if you're stuck and you're not sure, maybe you didn't hear it properly, then make an educated guess based on the grammar. So that was tip number 3. If you're stuck, make an educated guess using correct grammatical structures. The next thing is capitalization. Capitalization is very important. What you have to understand is every single proper noun that you write needs to be capitalized. If you write a name, if the answer for a question is Jim, and if you don't write a capital J, J-I-M, Jim, then that answer will be incorrect. If you write simple J-I-M, that answer is incorrect. That is true for both your reading and listening tests. If your capitalization is incorrect, you will lose marks. Something that you can do to mitigate this problem and not worry about, do I have to capitalize this? Do I not have to capitalize this? The easiest thing for you to do is just write everything in capital letters. All right, if you write everything in capital letters, then you will not have a problem. You won't have to sit and think, oh, is this capital? Is this simple? You won't have to worry about any of it. Everything will be in capital. But keep in mind, you can't write some answers in capital and some answers in simple. All right, that's just, you need to maintain a level of uniformity. All right, so make sure you mark all your answers in capital letters. But if you are comfortable with your capitalization and you know that proper nouns need to be written with a capital letter, then you have nothing to worry about. You can just write in the normal format. So that is tip number 3. Pay attention to your capitalization, and if you're struggling, write everything in capital letters. Next, pay attention to your spellings. As I told you earlier, as I mentioned 2 or 3 times earlier, if you get your spellings wrong, then you will lose the entire mark. Therefore, tip number 5 is very simple. Pay attention to your spellings. There is no easy way to fix this. You have to practice your spellings, you have to do dictation, and you have to get to know how to spell words properly. Also, when you have to write the name of a person or a place, usually in the recording, they will spell it out for you. For example, again, if you take the name Jim, they will say J-I-M, Jim. All right? They will not just say Jim, because there are some names. For example, I remember in a listening recording, they had the name Mkere. How do you write Mkere? We don't know. So they spell it out for us. M-K-E-R-E, Mkere. All right? So whenever they have the name of a person, whenever they have the name of a place, they usually spell it out for you so that you don't get the spellings wrong. Few things to keep in mind. You have to get accustomed to the British accent. All right, and I'll tell you how to do that in just a bit. But you have to get accustomed to the British accent, because sometimes, for example, if they're giving a number, all right, now we say 0715, they say 0715. Think of James Bond, right? It's 007. If Sri Lankan said it, it would have been 007. But it's not. They say it's 007. All right, 007. So 00, that's how they say the number 0. So you have to pay attention to that. Then when they use articles like and, or when they use auxiliary verb was, were, all right, the way they pronounce these words, you might miss it. All right, there's a chance that you might miss it. If you haven't really paid attention, if you haven't practiced as much, chances are the way they pronounce certain words, you're not going to get it. For example, if we say a cup of tea, they might say a cup of tea. All right, they go very fast. All right, there's a neutral vowel there, so they go very fast, and we might miss it. So we have to prepare beforehand, and we have to practice in order to understand that accent better, and in turn to understand the words, which will help us write and spell our words properly. So that's the next tip. Spell your words correctly, or else you will lose marks. All right, the final tip that I have for you today is to practice listening to the accent. And how do you do this? You already know that in the IELTS listening test, you have 4 sections. These 4 sections include either one person talking or many people talking. So one of the best ways to practice for this test is to listen to podcasts and TED Talks. These are my go-to resources when I'm trying to train the accent, train people to understand the accent of the British. I always search for British podcasts. All you have to do is go on YouTube and search for British podcasts. All right. Even American podcasts work. I mean, I love listening more than British podcasts. I love listening to American podcasts. I love the Joe Rogan podcast. I love the Jay Shetty podcast. You listen to people like this and their accent is so nice, right? But sometimes if you're listening to an American accent, the nuances of the language might be different to the British. So when you go on YouTube and you're a beginner, try to listen to British podcasts. And what you can do is, while listening to the podcast, try to take some notes of the important points that they're talking about. Try to summarize what you heard. Maybe take a 10-minute clip and try to summarize what you heard. All right, then increase that to 15 minutes, 20 minutes. All right, and try to summarize the information that you understood. Okay, by doing this, you get yourself accustomed to their accent, you get accustomed to the way that they use the language, and you get accustomed to the way that they speak, which will really go a long way when you're doing the listening test. Because majority of the listening test, you can't follow tips and tricks. You just have to be able to understand the language. All right, so if you don't understand what they're saying, chances are you're going to lose a lot of marks. So listening to podcasts, British podcasts or even American podcasts, is one of the best ways to understand the English language. All right, so listening to podcasts is number one. Number two is TED Talks. All right, listening to TED Talks will really go a long way in helping you face questions or face the fourth section of the exam. This is where they give you an academic lecture. TED Talks are exactly like an academic lecture. All right, so take maybe a 15-20 minute TED Talk, try to summarize it, try to understand it, keep listening to it every single day and understand what is being said. The more you practice these, these things are not difficult to do, right? You can listen to a TED Talk on your way to work, while you're traveling in the car, while you're traveling in the bus. It's not very difficult to do. It just requires a little bit of determination to switch from your favorite song to a slightly boring yet educational TED Talk. Podcasts, though, are very interesting. I personally love listening to podcasts while I drive. So that's something that I find entertaining. But maybe you might find it a bit boring. But still, it requires a bit of determination to switch from your song to the podcast or the TED Talk. But trust me, listening to these things, TED Talks and podcasts, will take you a long way in understanding the language and therefore helping you understand what is being said in the listening test. All right, so that was our final tip. Listen to podcasts, listen to TED Talks. All right guys, with that we are done with our video today. If you are still struggling with the listening test and you want to improve further, you want to do practice tests, you want to get access to mock papers, and you want to learn more tips and strategies that will help you elevate your band score, make sure to join our 10-day IELTS program. The number is down below. You can give us a call or drop us a WhatsApp message. Classes are fully online, so you can connect from anywhere in the world. So make sure to call us up, maybe drop us a WhatsApp message, and we'll get in touch with you and you can be a part of the 10-day IELTS program. If you found this video useful, make sure to share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, and of course, if you're struggling with any area of the IELTS test, just put a comment down below and we will consider making a video to help you out with what you need. Alright, so with that we are done for today. Till our next video, keep practicing.